Well, welcome to today's Office, the video series where we try and make sense of the new normal. Every episode we speak to either leading creatives or creative leaders and really ask them about what the pandemic has meant for them, how they really coped working under lockdown, but more importantly, how they plan to cope now Freedom Day is upon us and we're getting back to what could be called normal. I have to say a big thanks to our sponsors, Adobe, who are backing this series, and a very appropriate sponsors they are too, because without technology like the systems they provide, I think it's fair to say none of us would have been working remotely at all. We'd have been sat at home doing nothing. But anyway, for this episode, I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Jack Renwick, of Jack Renwick Studio, one of London's biggest names in design, one of our former judges, and also someone who's got very strong views. And I'm really excited that you're actually with me in person, because that shows that we are getting back to normal. A few weeks ago we were being Zooming each other, but here we are in full 3D.
Yeah, no, real.
But I suppose I could really maybe kick off by asking you, what was the pandemic like for you when it all suddenly happened? How did you cope, and really how did you get through it, basically? Yes,
I would say a nightmare. That was the start of it was just absolutely horrific. I was shielding. I had a kidney transplant years ago, and I spent a year in a room with my tea getting put outside the door, my dinner getting put outside the door, and things like that. So that was pretty stressful. And then from a work point of view, a sudden just dry up of clients. Just them disappearing off the face of the earth, and it's kind of like, hello, just talking into the ether and nothing being there.
That was really lockdown one, wasn't it? Where it was like a cardiac arrest, wasn't it? Where
completely.
Everything just suddenly stopped. Yeah.
Stopped completely. And, you're sort of like, legally, what are you supposed to do with employees? How, what can you do? Everybody just stay at home. I kind of thought, when we moved, and we're pretty swift. That's a great thing, I suppose. You pack up your Macs, you take them home, and then you've got the kit to be able to continue working with. But suddenly being sort of thrust into that, you're then worried about, well, what does that mean for actually the output of work? But that was the thing that was actually surprisingly strong. I think it was more the legal and the managerial side of it that was much more stressful of, where is work going to come from now? That was where the heart attack was.
Yeah, and I suppose you had this double whammy because you personally felt quite vulnerable, so you had to, lock yourself away effectively, and then you had the pressure of the business as well. So it must have been a really difficult few months, really difficult to imagine.
It was.
Yeah,
it was really horrible. I'll start crying.
Yeah,
No, it was grim. It was absolutely grim, and I just sort of thought, how am I going to get through this? And then I got hooked up with a group online, like a Slack group of folk who are in the same boat, who run small and medium design companies and who are in that leader position and what to do. And everybody really sort of shared files and copies of sort of contracts, nothing like confidential, but just sort of like, I've had this advice off this accountant, I've had this advice off this lawyer, what we're doing is this. And then everybody, it saved you then doing all of the homework and carrying it all yourself. So I'd say that's my favourite thing that has come out of the whole thing, is that I feel much more connected to the design community through it, like the leaders of the design community. If you know.
And I suppose that's one positive. I heard a lot of people say that they've actually made a lot of friends through the episode. Maybe you found out these relationships are important.
Completely, because you sort of like think, there's always a bit of competition there, isn't it? Briefs are going out, everybody's pitching against each other, all that sort of thing. It felt like, right, we're in this together, guys, and what we want to do is make sure that we do the right thing by our teams, and how do we do that? So I really appreciated that. But
obviously the business then evolved. It has sort of coming out the other side now. When did it start? When did you sense it was beginning to sort of turn around and adapt to the new environment?
I think I was quite lucky with a client that I've had for a long, long time. So I was still feeding us projects. They're a FMCG company now. It was a client who was never in FMCG before. She'd moved into it. We know nothing about FMCG. She was like, do you want to design this thing? We were like, yes, we'll jump on it. Of course we know how to do packaging. And, and you sort of think, well, we'll learn, and we'll learn quickly, because you had to make the most of those opportunities. We were just sort of like saying yes to things that were really out of our comfort zone. And but it really sort of stretched us as a team. And that paid the bills and kept everybody in a job. And I only had to furlough a couple of staff for a few weeks, and then I managed to get them all back again, and then we've been busy, chocker busy ever since. And what we did was a lot of supplementing our team with graduates and students and bringing them in to help give them a bit of opportunity, like over the past sort of year. So we've really sort of staffed up with young team, not because they're cheap, but because that they're bringing new ways of thinking, and they're already in the sort of like sharing digitally world anyway. They've been so sort of used to that for the past year anyway, so they've really been able to hit the ground from all corners of Europe. I've not got as far as the US or Asia yet, but all corners of Europe's been amazing.
Yeah, I suppose actually because the other big issue with the pandemic is if you're sort of a young student, it must have been really hard to get a start. So again, you're sort of, it's important to bring on that new talent.
I kind of see it as like, again, a lot of us on this kind of Slack group really talked about it. It's like it is our duty and responsibility to give as much opportunity as we could. Otherwise, we'll just have a massive gap in the industry, and people who have studied over the past couple of years really sort of falling out of the industry. And we need them. We need that fresh thinking. We need they're the ones that are learning all the new technology and everything like that, that we need in our team. So we did a really big push on that, and I do a lot of talks with universities and stuff like this, and going, begging people to have the confidence to apply to people. It's like everybody's looking, everybody's hungry. There's so much opportunity out there. Get your folios out, get the email sent. If you don't ask, you don't get. Just ask what's the worst that can happen, and just really kind of pleading with them. There's a whole group of people that need you, so do it.
Yeah. And have you found that, as you've got used to sort of working remotely, did it change, how you work? Did it change the quality of the work?
I think some interesting things from my point of view is a lot of the work that we work on, and I always believe that you'd never get the answer from going and looking at Pinterest and looking at design blogs. It's like you need to be there, you need to be on the ground, and you need to go to where the problem is. And when you're in lockdown, that became like impossible. So it was like, right, how do we do that? So we were having to then talk to people that were on the ground there and sort of get it through their voice, like literally in their shoes, because we couldn't be there. So we were doing a lot of approach like that, but it did, I felt really kind of affect the real understanding of not being, if you're working on a hotel project and not actually standing in that hotel, or you're working on a farm and you're not standing there, I think that had a real negative impact, I felt, on opening people's minds, and it sort of like narrows their frame of reference then. It's only what you can find online, and you're not stumbling across those things in person when you've got your eyes open out and about.
Yes, because it's interesting, I think, if you look at your past career and all the experience you have, you've got this sort of store of capital built up, which in a lockdown you sort of spend it as you sit in your room and use it all up, and then
exactly.
You need to replenish it at some point by getting out and about again.
Yeah. You're absolutely drained of it, So it's like you have to, and it can be quite sort of easy. I think you're sort of like usually spent all day on a screen. You're either like working, like actually designing, or you're on a call. But I was quite adamant with the team that they had still attended the lectures that we would go to in the evening, because people were so generous to put on so many events, so many talks and everything like that for free for people. So I was then making sure, right, we'll have a beer, we'll meet up on like this night, and we'll have a chat about it as if we're at a lecture sort of thing, and still trying to maintain some of those norms.
In terms of what you do and how you work, it's quite a collaborative process. And here you're all working from home. How did you sort of maintain sort of the sharing information, collaboration?
I think, I guess like technology was like, it's like, thank God. And I've always been a bit of a kind of anti-tech, very kind of hands-on craft kind of thinker, and, expressing things pen and paper. So a lot of it has been like pen and paper holding it up to a screen, a bit like this, please. And still try to encourage the team to be sort of thinking independently, but then sharing online. And that's what has been great, is we've been able to then share our ideas together and, have sort of small groups. We've got like kind of different meeting rooms, like online hangouts and meeting rooms and things like that, to be able to meet up and chat and share the work. So that's been essential, because otherwise you're just in a complete silo. And then people start thinking things are brilliant, when really it's not.
Yeah, but it is interesting because if this sort of, the pandemic and maybe happened 5 or 6 years ago, I mean, as I said in the intro, I wonder if it would have been possible to sustain, design companies, really platforms like, Adobe, for example, and all the other sort of communication platforms that really allowed people to continue.
I think the way that they've become much more advanced, that you can actually share files, and input into people's files, has been, a real sort of transitional thing for our team anyway, where you can actually open it up, you're sharing the actual file live, you can comment on it, you can, you don't need to have another meeting, you can just stick some comments in the thing and it keeps the flow going much more smoothly, and can also stop things. That's one thing that I had been a bit nervous of, is when you're being the hovering art director in the middle of a studio, you can spot things and you can kind of go, guys, that's maybe not going in the right direction. But when you're then going, right, well, we'll catch up in 3 days online, you're not around to see those things. So being able to actually kind of see the files as they're developing and stop people going down rabbit holes then.
A minor course correction.
Yeah, kind of like love that. But I mean, think about really, is that really what that audience needs? And just doing wee kind of corrections and stuff like that. So I've found that a lifeline. Yeah,
but do you think that sort of experience of you sort of you started using these tools, you've been able to run the business, as a remotely. Do you think that will then change how you work going forward?
Yeah, I think so. I've always been like quite studio first, and kind of everyone in the studio, and that's where the accidents happen. Accidents not happen, like I would get sued over accidents. Good, creative accidents. It's like tripping over wires. You think those things, that's where the magic is, but I think we've realised that we can just talk more. If you can talk through an idea, I think it's an old Bob Gill quote, if you can tell me the idea over the phone, then it's a good idea. And we used to make the team go outside and phone us and tell us the idea, and now we're apart anyway, so we talk more about the idea, and then if you can hear it and it sounds right, that's when you know it's working.
So actually that's quite interesting. So you're saying because of this experience of working with, in a hybrid way, you're now launching a new business in Scotland, is that right?
That's right, yep. So doing a whole new thing, Sideways. We're going to call it Sideways Projects, and that'll run JRS from Scotland, and then we're going to run some other projects as well, hopefully as a way of getting young, underprivileged children into design and exciting them about design and understanding that there's a career there for it. So that's what our intention is, to run a little design school.
So what sort of form will that take then?
We'll take, firstly, converting loads of barns and a load of hard work.
Who will it be?
It'll be in Argyll in Largymore in Scotland. Yeah, so that's just on the west coast.
So I'm assuming you bought some sort of building, you bought some barns and this.
Yeah, we've bought an entire holiday estate and 30 acres of land.
Wow.
And, so there's some things existing that we'll convert, and then we're going to run we'll set up a load of like eco-pod style things for people to come and stay in, have a retreat, do all that kind of sort of stuff, and there's loads of water sports and canoeing, go right on Loch Fyne, so that'll be nice. Yeah,
and so part of the planning is to help identify and develop new talent, and then but also run your business.
That's the plan. And I think like over the years, I really enjoy teaching people, and I do a lot of teaching at art schools and do lecturing and things like that. And we've got a real kind of opportunity with the kids that we've sort of got out there, and I think a lot of people are not studying enough design and art anymore. UK government not investing in it. So I think it's going to come down to things like brands and designers in the industry to try and help cover some of that gap and invest in it. So I always say I got a helping hand when I was younger, introduced to design, and that's what I'd like to do.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a big issue at the moment where the education system is not taking creative seriously. No. When it because in terms of economic strength, it is one of our big strengths as an economy.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? Like any other economy is fully supported, and it's just completely overlooked, as if it's what my parents would have thought was like farting about arty-farty careers and things like that, and it's like, come on. It's like a serious business. Yeah. Where's the help?
Yeah, and it's it's help define what the UK is really. But there's really interesting also. You start bringing it's going to be young kids. Are they going to be from underprivileged backgrounds or people might not have had the chance to get into the industry?
Yeah, I think that's it. It's maybe folk who, have an interest in design, creative, art, whatever it might be, but they don't know where to begin. I didn't have a clue where to start. It's like I have a passion for it, but I didn't know about going to art school and things like that. You filled out forms and you did things like this, So I think, I'm sure a lot of kids aren't quite that naive, but they maybe just don't get that opportunity. And I think this would be like a chance for a bit of a sort of testing ground to see if it's maybe going to art school would be something suitable, or doing some apprenticeships with our team, like working on live problems, a lot of charity work and things like that that we'll take on. So
yeah,
time to try something else.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great thing to come out of the lockdown, isn't it? Yeah. But obviously, as you're saying, it's been able to work remotely and been able to prove that actually you can work on a hybrid basis. That's made all this possible.
Completely, like the whole thing. We were looking at different houses. Me and my husband are up traipsing about Scotland looking at houses, and the number one question is like, has it got high-speed broadband? It's like, that's nice. It's got that bedroom and this bedroom. It's like, but has it got high-speed broadband?
Yeah.
So that's how we can run a remote business now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's been very positive in terms that you've proved you can actually run a remote business.
Aye.
But what about the work itself? As people have been sort of experienced lockdown, do you think the work has improved because of that, where people have been able to focus on it, or is it not really improved? I
think probably two halves really. I think it's always like necessity is the mother of invention, and some people you have to be a bit more resourceful. So you look for different ways to crack a problem that you might have had a kind of set formula for approaching things before in the past, and now that things have been shook up a bit, all shook up, then people have had to find other ways of thinking about things, and I have loved seeing really unusual projects coming out. I always remember seeing Mark Denton's a series of ads that Mark had done for a travel company, and it was like, how do you do travel? It was like during the first lockdown, and it was just genius. Like the way he'd shot everything. A pile of shirts and some clothes pegs that made, just that slight out of focus, and made all these beautiful chair lifts. So I'm like, that is where clever thinking has to come in. But I think for other people, they've maybe not explored different ways of thinking, and they've maybe gone on a bit of design blogs and your Pinterest and things like that, and then things start getting a bit samey. So you're sort of trying to encourage people who are maybe going there as a bit of a default setting because they can't get out, they can't go to other things. It's like, don't do the homework online, or not online on design sites or ad sites. Do it online on the sites that your subject matter's about, and what your audience is interested in, and what do they eat and drink, and all of those things, because you can't get out to those places. You can now, but you can still get there a bit online, by doing your homework in a different way. I'm hoping to see a bit more unusual work coming out from this lockdown, but I guess maybe that'll be coming out next year.
Yeah. If there's sort of any big lessons you sort of take out of this experience, what would they be? I mean, if you're sort of advising other business owners about what the new normal is going to mean, what would that advice be?
One of the things that we did to try and keep everybody together, kind of like culturally, because I think I've always been quite sort of proud that our team really looks out for each other. So one thing that we'd introduced was these kind of ministerial roles for people. So we have a Minister of Health, a Minister of Education, and a Minister of Entertainment, so that everybody's assigned. You're always saying, let's do fun things, or let's do social things, and it's like, yeah, and then it's all on my back. So I've made it actually part of their job descriptions that the Minister of Education looks after training and any new bits of software or anything like that people should be learning that's going to help their job. Then, Minister of Health is making sure that we were doing PE with Joe, which was PE with Jack. We were doing that like 3 mornings a week and carving out that time to do it. And then we've got a Minister of Entertainment, which is like, Friday night kind of things.
Is that your role?
That's mine.
Is that, there's a surprise.
But I think, that's a bit of advice for folk, is like if you give folk the responsibility and the trust to then get on with it, they take it upon themselves and they can get quite passionate about it. So they're not just passionate about the design and answering the problems, they're passionate about how do they keep their team together, and it becomes part of their job. So I think assigning those roles has been quite helpful for me, and it means it's not all on my back.
That's great. I suppose I should ask you when your new sort of complex in Scotland, when will it actually be open?
Well, we get the keys at the end of August, but there's a lot of work to do to get the barns up and running and things like that. Just now, there's just like, wood rot and spider fest. So probably I would say next summer would be when we're looking to look for the first kind of cohort of people, and then be able to start inviting people who are looking for an escape with their team. I've been looking for places to take my team, and go canoeing and on the water and things like this, or but have a space that we can work as well. So that's what I'm hoping to try and provide for other people. So you would be welcome to come with your team and give it a whirl and see if working remotely really works, and have some fun.
And maybe you can meet your Minister of Public Works up there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And I suppose that's you as well.
Yeah, that would be me. I think I'll be Minister of a lot of things for a while until I get some more money.
That's great. Well, all the best for that project. That sounds really exciting.
Cheers.
And thanks for all your insights and all your time.
Pleasure.
Great.
Pleasure.
Well, that's it for this episode of Today's Office. We have a few other episodes online, so feel free to log in and have a look at those if you want to get more insights about issues affecting the new normal. And if you really want to take a really deep dive into how the creative industry is really going to evolve over the next couple of years, you can download a report which the Drum compiled in conjunction with Adobe, and you'll be able to find a link for that report if you follow that article related to this video. You'll find that link. Anyway, thanks for watching.